Where's the stock market going to go this year? We're entering 2024. If you want to know where it's going, we're here to answer that question. So I'm here with Marshall Johnson, fellow certified financial planner, vice president here at Howard Bailey Financial, another member of our investment committee.
What's up, buddy?
It's time of the year, dude. It is that time of the year where we get to talk about what the stock market's going to do in 2024.
Because everybody's got that crystal ball, right?
Well, everybody thinks they have that crystal ball, except for us. You know, we don't think that we have the crystal ball, but I must say I'm feeling pretty confident this year in my predictions. I'm feeling very confident in my numbers and my predictions, and a lot of that comes from past confidence because I beat you so badly this past year.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, you can have your day, Mr. Weade, but we'll see what happens this year.
I mean, this is how confident that I'm feeling in 2024 is that I'm ready to make a wager. Right?
You get ready to put something on this.
In 2023, we didn't have a wager. And
it's just pride.
Boy, I
right?
sure wish
my pride took a hit.
We should have done that. Now this year,
because you won,
we're going to play some bets. And this is the problem. This is the problem with investing, right? I see it in myself. You know, you see it in all the crypto people, right? They have a couple bad years ago. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have put any money in crypto, and I shouldn't.
Once you have success, you're going.
And
why didn't I put more?
Right now they're going. You know, I need to put more in crypto. I'm ready to make some more bets.
Double down.
Right?
I'm going to average up.
And I guess I find myself in that same position. Because if we look back at 2023, what were those predictions? Well, I predicted that the S&P 500, now we're just focusing on large cap U.S. stocks.
500.
I said, hey, the stock market's going to see about 11.25% gain in the S&P 500.
This is coming off of 2022. Everything was pretty pessimistic. The stock market had a terrible year in 2022. And so both of us thought 2023 was going to be positive. You said 11 and something.
I
said it's 7.83, which is such a great round number. Mm-hmm. And we were both way off.
I think I was like on the nose.
Yeah.
I think I nailed it. And I mean, okay, so I picked 11.25. The market was up 24%, but not really. Okay, not really.
Oh, it wasn't?
Not really. I mean, that's smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors. I mean, look at the NASDAQ.
Is this
right?
like
So
PCE and inflation numbers?
Well, look, Well, the NASDAQ was
We're
up 54%.
going to take out food and energy. We're going to take out AI and
the things we spend our money on. The NASDAQ was up 54%. Just hear me out. If we look at the Magnificent Seven, that's what drove most of the returns in the S&P 500 last year.
Yes.
So if we look at the equal weighted S&P 500, if we equal weight the S&P, then it's 11.8%. I should have clarified at the beginning of the year.
I should go back. So this is the name of the game. You just wait to see what the results are, and then you twist the logic to make your choice work. So I'm interested to see how this will work out for me next year.
You know, and I am too, because we have some bets on the line, for this coming year. And what are these bets? So if I win in 2024, end of the year, 2024, if I win, now I'm a regular cold plunger. I like a good ice bath. Marshall?
I like to roll my eyes at the ice bath.
He hates it. And he's never done it. He's always refused. So I said, all right, this is the moment. This is when I'm going to get him into an ice bath. So
I'm going to get hypothermia for losing a bet.
Well, we're only going to do 3 minutes at 37 degrees.
Sounds like hypothermia.
Right? Well, it could be close.
I'm going to lose toes.
But I will be there, camera on hand, towel on hand to keep you warm. But that's what we're going to bet right now. We've got the year-end bet. You're taking an ice plunge, 37 degrees, 3 minutes. That's going to happen in January of next year because I'm going to win this bet.
We're going to live stream it on the gram.
That's right. We'll live stream it. So what's that mean for me?
For you, it's definitely got to be something that involves your hair, but I got to do something that's not a permanent thing, right?
I don't know why it always has to do with my hair.
Because, it's got an aura about it, and I want to mess it up. So I think we're going to color. I think we need some color in your hair.
Oh, yeah?
Although it might be difficult to color your hair because it's
I think you
so
can
dark.
color anything.
These days,
let's
go.
There's
let's
hair
go
technology.
Blue. I think we should go blue. There's new hair technology.
All right.
Let's smurf it up a little bit, Papa Smurf. Here we come.
Casey's going Smurf for the month of January. Marshall's taking a cold plunge.
I don't know if you have to do it for a whole month.
Okay, so maybe a day.
Maybe a day. But there will be footage of this.
Now we're also going to make an additional bet, which is probably never going to get paid off. But that is if we nail the number.
I mean, if you get it right on the head.
If we nail the number, the year-end S&P 500 on a point basis, $1,000 on the line.
Woo!
Woo!
Let's go.
And we're willing to take that bet because it's so darn unlikely.
So unlikely.
Right? So what's your prediction?
My prediction, ready? 13.2% to the upside on the S&P 500. That would put us at about 54.29 is my new target.
Okay, 54.29. I'm going with 51.50. I'm going to be a little bit more pessimistic this year.
Okay.
This is weird for me. I feel like you're the one that's usually
a little more conservative.
A little bit more conservative than I am. I'm going to say 7.4% is the gain in the S&P 500.
7 what?
7.4.
Okay.
That's 51.50 by the end of the year, so about a 7.5% gain.
It's like Van Halen.
And I got to say, we're being quite a bit more optimistic than the average analyst, but guess what? They're wrong the majority of the time. So
always.
We're batting pretty good right now since they're usually on the wrong side of it.
I just saw Nick Majuli on his blog. He posted 23 analysts from 2022 that were predicting 2023 returns. And the highest target for the S&P in 2023 out of these 23 analysts was 47.50. We ended the year at 47.69. So the market blew away all of those analysts.
All of the analysts.
In 2023.
So they were all wrong. Let's see if we can make a name for ourselves this year.
Let's go.
I looked at the top 14 analyst predictions for 2024. And if we look at those numbers, boy, there's a range, let me tell you.
Yeah, the lowest one's JP Morgan, right?
Dude, we've got negative 31%.
Oh,
right?
So you're looking at a different list than I was looking at.
Yeah, we have negative 31%, which was BCA Research. So BCA Research has us at 3,300. No, it's a major analyst. No. We've got
just kidding. That was a joke.
We got JP Morgan though, still negative.
Yeah,
JP Morgan at 4,200, a 12% drop.
I was going to say I saw JP Morgan was 11 or 12% down.
Yeah, but then on the high end, I mean the highest is 12.5%.
Nothing.
Yardini Research. So I mean it's a pretty stout number. Listen, but nothing.
Marshall Johnson Research says 13.2.
You're going to blow these analysts out of the water. Yeah, but here's the thing: like if you look at the average of all of these different analysts, so you take these 14 different major institutions. I mean, we're talking Morgan Stanley, Stifel Nicholas, B of A, RBC, Goldman, Deutsche, BMO, et cetera. Their average number is 0.75. So that just shows you that they're all over the place. They don't really know, right? 0.75% gain is the average analyst prediction.
Really?
They all have access to the same tools, right? And they're all really smart people. This isn't one person who just put together these numbers. I mean, this is teams. These are people that have a lot of data.
That do this for a living.
Yeah, they do this for a living. And I don't even know, honestly, I don't know why they do it for a living other than to make a name for themselves if by chance they get it right and they're on the opposite end of things.
Well, and just so everybody senses the sarcasm in our voices, I mean, we think this is all pretty ridiculous, right? The fact that somebody thinks that they can accurately predict where the market's going to go and at what point something's going to happen.
But I think there are things that, especially in these two articles that we're going to talk about from Weekend Reading, I think there's some really good information in there that does provide you good predictive measures of what the market can do in the following year. But at the end of the day, we don't know, right? Mm-hmm. Any number of things could happen in any given year, which is why you always have to plan for the worst. I don't think anybody ever predicted what would have happened in 9/11. Very few were caught on the right side of the tech bubble or the real estate bubble, the financial crisis, Lehman Brothers, right? A lot of these things happen and we just can't predict. That's why they're called black swan events. You don't see black swans very often. And that is why.
You do see black squirrels, though. I was up in Michigan this weekend as well. There's a lot of black squirrels.
There's a lot of people that are listening never heard of a black squirrel.
Yeah, Michigan. Oh. They love it. They love it up there, apparently.
So the average analyst is about 0.75%. Now, if you look at the median, though, so that's the middle number. So if you just look at the median number instead of the average, it's 4.25%. So about 4.25%. Not an overly positive year for the stock market as a whole, but we still have about 70% of analyst predictions being positive for the year, 30% being negative. And so those are things for us to take into consideration. I would take them very lightly, though.
I got a secret. You want to know my secret?
I want to know your secret.
Where my prediction came from? So the Carson
You theft.
the Carson Group put out some data here on election cycles, and for the last 10 election cycles, where this is going back to 52 Eisenhower, when Eisenhower got elected, during the election year, every year that a new president was elected, there's green numbers, Casey Weade, every time. And the average return is 12.2. The median is 13.2. There's where I'm getting my number, 13.2,
wow,
baby.
you took that median number. I was much less scientific.
Well, I mean, I just read this article. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go with
I picked a
the
number
average.
that sounded pretty good.
Yeah, that's what I did. That's what I did last year, and I lost.
Oh no! Well, let's hope that doesn't end up.
But I hope we're both close, right? Like
Yeah,
I
I do.
hope.
Yeah,
I hope
I
it's a
hope the volume's
positive year. Like it feels like, and I know you're going to go into some headlines right now, but there's obviously some tailwinds and some challenges, geopolitical challenges and things going on around the world, but. The sentiment is actually more positive this year than going into last year,
which probably means it's going to be a bad year.
No, we just need to get that vibe expansion going. What was the comment the other day? Get that vibe. We need that positive vibe.
Well, you have to emphasize how important it is to not read any of the articles that are out there, right? Regardless of them being from Fox Business or Business Insider or CNBC or Bloomberg or New York Times. I mean, let me read just a couple of these headlines. Fox Business. U.S. economists predict 2024 will bring biggest crash of our lifetime. Ooh. This is one of my favorites. Stock market crash alert. Mark your calendars for January 5th.
Oh, they're going to pick a day. It already happened.
Well, glad we didn't do anything about that. S&P to crash 30%. Recession underway. No rate cuts soon. Stock market outlook. S&P 500 could crash 27% as U.S. tips into recession. Stock market outlook. S&P to tumble 14% in mild downturn before rallying. And then we have the bull headlines. Expect a bumpy landing for the economy in 2024 and a very bullish year for stocks, strategists say. If you'd like to take the information that you've gleaned here to the next level, all you have to do is this. Click the link in the description and schedule a 15-minute phone consultation with an advisor on our team where you can get answers to your own unique questions and concerns. Strategists say. Stock market forecasters who nailed 2023 predict more gains in 2024. Stock market outlook. S&P 500 could soar 30% on Fed rate cuts. Ed Yardini says stocks are set to soar 30% over the next 2 years as his roaring 2020 scenario plays out. Who is going to be right? I'm going to put my money on myself this year.
Me too.
As I just did.
$1,000.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. I can't wait to watch it throughout the year. Now, I think there's some really good stuff here, though. You know, all kidding aside. When we look at some of the articles we put in Weekend Reading this week, we have an article from Ben Carlson, A Wealth of Common Sense, titled What Comes After a Good Year in the Stock Market. And when we look at bad years, right? Bad years in the stock market, he says, typically followed by good years. I'm going to say it feels like a coin flip to me. If you actually look at these numbers, I don't know that that it's not statistically significant.
Well, again, this is the 10 worst years for the S&P going back to 1928. That included several. You got the Great Depression in there. You got dot-com bubble bursting. You got 73 to 74. I mean, there was historically bad times during that.
Okay, yeah, your 10 worst years, but it's still a coin flip. It's 60% of the time. If you look at all of those, 60% of the time the market's positive.
Man, look at all those double digits, though. Positive after the great financial crisis, 25, 26%, 29.
Yeah, they're big numbers.
Big numbers.
I think it's a relatively small sample size. Now, if you look at all of the down years following a double-digit up year since 1928 for the S&P 500, it's a little different. So why are we doing that? Because last year was a double-digit up year for the S&P 500. Yeah. So if we look at those numbers going back to 1928, there are 16 times where double-digit up years were followed by down years. I got to say the down years on average weren't that bad, but some of them were, right? 1936, 32% up, followed by 35% down to in the following year. So there go those gains pretty darn quickly, right? And then we have double-digit up years that were followed by double-digit up years. So
yeah, clusters.
Now, there's a heck of a lot more of those, right? Out of, in that period of time, we have 26 times where we had double-digit up years followed by double-digit up years. That's a lot.
Like 40% of the time.
And there's 16 separate clusters that span 40 years in total. That's more than 40% of the time we see these years cluster together. We have 6 multi-year clusters too, not just back-to-back double years, but we have multi-year clusters and some ones that have happened not that long ago too. 2019, 31%, 2020, 18, 2021, 28%. And that's pretty significant. 40% of the time we see 16 separate clusters over 40 years, and multi-year clusters happen 20% of the time. Still a pretty good number. I would still say, yes, it's still I want to say it's still relatively a coin flip just because we don't know. There's so many different variables and people get it wrong so many times that they just don't know. But yes, the odds are on our side, right? Over 80% of the time. What'd you say? 83% of the time.
83% of the time. Yeah.
The S&P 500 is going to be positive in any given year.
You find yourself in a bull market over the last 100 years. So I think the point though is you can throw it all out the window, right? We don't know whether the market's going to crash. You look at those predictions, whether the market crashes 30% or it's up 13, like I said, you have to have a plan for both, right? So prepare for both. Make sure your plan can handle those storms regardless of what the market does. That's the secret.
Yes. Well, and you're also talking long term at the same time, because you're saying something really bad can happen in the short term. So think long term. Well, many can't think long term, right? Because they need the money tomorrow. Because it
shouldn't be at risk if you need it tomorrow.
Or next year, the next 5 years. If we look at the median 10-year total returns following a 10% return in the stock market versus 15% in the stock market, 20% up year, then it'd be 173% in total 10-year gains, 234% in total 10-year gains, and we just had a positive 20% plus year. Then on average, those returns are 188% positive over the following 10 years over the past 95 years. So if I was a betting man, I'd say the market's going to be positive 10 years from now where we're actually sitting today. Yeah, maybe not 13%.
Well, according to that, I have a 20% or 11% chance of my prediction coming.
Yeah, and I think one of the other great things that Nick Bajuli put out was something very much along these same lines, but he's looking at it from kind of a slightly different perspective. I'd say he's using a little bit more of a statistical approach when he's looking at what the stock market's done historically, what it's going to do next year, the annual return of U.S. stocks after a big down year for all years, year 1900 through 2021, we would see that they're skewed to the right. Right? After a big down year, we see returns that are skewed to the right. And what did we have in 2021? We had a big down year in 2021, followed by what actually matched the number, which should be the median number there for returns following a bad year in the stock market. So we had an 18% return in 2022. Then we have the 1 year return of U.S. stocks after a big up year for all years, 1900 through 2022. So this is kind of looking at the other side of this. After a big up year for all other years, where do we see that land? We see that land at about 11%. But on average, all other years, it's about a 7% gain following a big up year for stocks.
Again, skewed to the right.
And also not statistically significant at the same time. But what is statistically significant, I'd say, is 5-year returns. 5-year returns of U.S. stocks after a big up year in all other years. That chart just, check out the show notes. Look at this chart. If you're not watching it on YouTube, you'd see this chart right in front of you on YouTube. But over the 5-year returns following a big up year, it matches. Right? I mean, the standard deviation, the chart, the frequency of returns,
pretty close.
They're almost exact, right? You're over long periods of time. Again, you don't see big skews either to the left or to the right. But if you're in retirement, you got to buy yourself some time in order to experience those long-term positive returns that you might see in the market. Now, maybe this conversation wasn't enough for you. We gave you our stock market predictions. We talked about analyst predictions that are out there today, and maybe you want to dive a little bit deeper. Well, so do we, and we do. We're going to dive into, take a deeper dive into the economy, take a deeper dive into other sectors of the market, what what happened in the previous year, what we expect to see in the following year, things to watch out for during the following year, major milestones in the following year. And we do all that in a webinar that we typically provide to our clients. We're going to open that webinar up, provide it to you so that you can join us on that webinar and you can take a deep dive with us. You can also ask us some questions.
Yeah, submit some questions.
Yep, submit some questions, and we can answer those things at the same time prior to the webinar. And if you want to get yourself signed up to join us for that 60-minute webinar, super easy. Just shoot us a text, and we'll shoot you a link, and we'll keep you up to date. Make sure you're aware of when and where you can access that. If you're listening to this in February or March or maybe later in the year, you want to go back and listen to it, we'll send you the recorded version. All you have to do is text us the keyword market. Text us market to 866-482-9559. And we'll get you a link, or you can just check out the link in the show notes. Welcome to the podcast. If you're new to the podcast, I want you to know what to expect. First of all, our mission here on the pod is to deliver clarity and purpose and elevate meaning in your life through personal and practical financial strategies, but not just the financial. We also incorporate the non-financial as well. You'll see that every other Monday, we release a long-form interview-based podcast with a world-class guest on a variety of different topics. And then every Friday we get together with you, we discuss a trending topic. Again, on the financial or the non-financial. Today is going to be more of a financially based conversation. Most of these conversations we have on Friday, probably 95% of these conversations, coming from our Weekend Reading for Retirees email series. That's an email that hits your inbox every single Friday. Our team, they go out, they sift through the internet, and they deliver to you 4 articles in your inbox with summaries and takeaways, along with all other kinds of great resources that you'll receive one a week every single Friday, webinar invitations, book giveaways, and one of the cool things you get to do is submit your questions to our world-class guests so that I can bring those into the conversations and you become a co-architect with me. If you've never signed up for this email, when you sign up, we're going to send you a free copy of my latest book, my Wall Street Journal bestselling book, Job Optional. So to get signed up, check out a link in the description, or you can just shoot us a text. Text us the key letters WR to 866-482-9559.